Hello everyone, I wanted to do a how to play video on Jaws the board game. This is a pretty new board game, just recently got released. I think it's a Target exclusive, at least for now. I pre-ordered it, got it a couple days ago, and so far I've played one playthrough of it. It's a 2 to 4 player game. The box says 60 minutes. I think you could get it to play in 60 minutes after you go through it a couple times. I played it with 4 players. I played one of the human characters, Brody. But I wanted to go through it. There's not very much information on this game anywhere. There's no how to play videos. There's no the rule book's not even posted. Ravensburger's website doesn't even have it listed as one of the games they publish. So for some reason, there's just not very much information about this game yet. So I wanted to provide this opportunity to share the game with other people that might be interested in picking it up, or just kind of understand what the game's about, to see if it might be right for you. I'm a big Jaws fan, so I was pretty excited to see this game coming out and finally get to play it. So let's get into it. So the game is broken up into two acts. Act 1 takes place on Amity Island. It follows very similar to the movie. The first half of the game is played on Amity Island, and the second half is played on the Orca, which is called Act 2. So to start the game, basically you flip it onto Amity Island. You set these barrel tokens in the middle of the board at the shop. You'll place Hooper on this white boat. He's the blue meeple on this 5 space. You'll place Brody, the black meeple, at Amity PD. You'll place Quint at space 8 here with 2 barrel tokens. And then you'll lay out the swimmer tokens. There are 16 of them. You'll set up the Amity deck, which is here. You'll set up each of the player boards, and then give them their special tokens if they have one. And I'll go through those here in a minute. And the shark player will get the special shark tracker booklet. Basically, in order to track their hidden movements throughout the game, they get the shark board with the little slider. You start it at 0, and you'll move it up as you consume swimmers, as I describe here in a minute. The shark player will also get these special power tokens, and each of them gives the shark a special power, such as being able to eat all the swimmers at one beach, being able to move 3 spaces in one action, and then the other 2 are kind of evasive things where the shark can avoid detection by the various things the players can deploy throughout the game. And the shark player also gets a little Jaws meeple. So start the game with the shark player will first decide where they want to start on the board. So secretly they will mark a location, starting location, here on the board. So I will say the shark player will start at position 1. And they'll start. Ignore my markings. This might not be the first time I've tried to record this. So what happens after the shark player has gone ahead and picked their starting location? An Amity event will happen. So the Amity event is just a card, and so you flip it over and you see what it is. This one's a helicopter. If you love the movie Jaws, you'll love this game, because a lot of these, it follows very closely with the movie. U.S. Indianapolis, Shark Alert, The Bounty on the Shark, etc. And all of them have little quotes from the movie too, so it's kind of fun. But anyway, so each of the cards will have this little swimmer symbol, and what that means is that you'll be placing swimmers at these beaches. So on the board there's 4 beaches. There's North Beach, East Beach, South Beach, and West Beach. So this card says in, which means you'll place 2 swimmers on North Beach. Here. You'll place 2 swimmers on East Beach. Oop, that's West. East Beach. And 1 on West Beach. There we go. So once that's done, basically, the swimmers are distributed, and then each card has a little special action. So this one says Brody may immediately move to any space on the board. So if the Brody player wanted to do that, they could just move anywhere. This kind of set the stage of what may be their actions for this round. But to start off with, the shark player gets to go first. The shark player and Act 1 gets up to 3 actions. And the action options are move 1 space, eat 1 swimmer, and then also they can play a power token, one of these. Now these are once per use, so as soon as they use it, it's gone, it goes back to the box. But they're pretty powerful. It depends on how the game comes out. So the shark player will do their motions. So for instance, since the shark player started at position 1, example movement would be, maybe I want to go to North Beach real quick, then move 1, eat a swimmer, that's how that would work, and then move to position 6 here. So that would be my turn as the shark. And what I would do on my little shark tracker thing is I'd mark where I ended at on 6. So I'd say ended at position 6. And then if I ate any swimmers, I'd mark that. So I'd mark in 1. I ate 1 swimmer at North Beach. And then if I used a power token, I'd go ahead and mark that off. And so how if I wanted to play a power token, what I'd do is I'd pick one and I'd place it secretly. So the players would know I played one, but they wouldn't know which one I played. So that would be the shark's turn. Once the shark goes, then the human players go. And how the human players work is they can go in any order they want per round. So if Hooper wants to go first this round, that's cool. Brody wants to go first next round, that's fine. The only rule is that as soon as one player starts their actions, they do have to finish their actions before another player can start their actions. So let me go through the various roles and actions that the human players can take. So for Brody, he can take the 4 up to 4 actions, just like all the other human characters. He can move a space, he can rescue a swimmer, he can pick up 1 barrel from the shop, the central place. He can drop off a barrel at the dock. The docks are indicated by these little barrel symbols here and here. He can use his binoculars once per round at one of the beaches. So any of the 4 beaches he can use his binoculars. And how binoculars work are basically you'd go to, Brody would be at a beach, say here at East Beach, and he'd say, I'm going to use my binoculars. And what would happen is basically if the shark player is in East Beach, the shark player would have to place their shark token saying, yes, I'm at East Beach, you found me. If he's not at East Beach, he doesn't have to do that. He just says, I'm not there, I'm not on East Beach. There is that card here that allows him to be invisible to Brody's binoculars, so if the shark player did play that during the turn, then that would mean that even though Brody did look at the binoculars and the shark was at East Beach, then he would just say, I'm not there. So was this power token the invisible binoculars or something else, or is he simply not there? The players don't know, they just kind of have to figure that out. So that's how binoculars work. The other thing Brody can do is close the beach. So if Brody is at the mayor's office or at Amity PD, he can close one of the beaches as long as there are no swimmers at the beach. So the only beach right now that Brody would be able to close, for instance, would be South Beach. And so the player this token would go on the beach. And it's closed. And how this works is basically next time there's an Amity event and there's a South Beach card, basically what would happen is no swimmers would be assigned there, but since a swimmer would have been assigned to this space, this token gets flipped over and then the beach is opening soon. So this would be placed there. And then again, as the game plays, if another Amity event card was pulled and a swimmer would be assigned here, the swimmer still doesn't get assigned, but this token now goes away. Now, if during the turn somehow maybe the shark is at a different beach and or you think he's at, and so you've already have this placed here, you can remove it and place it somewhere else on the board, but you can't place it in multiple places. So you can replace it if it hasn't been returned to your player card yet. Second character is Hooper, and what he can do is he can move up to 2 spaces in his boat. So he's a little white boat and a blue maple. He can rescue 1 swimmer. He can pick up any or all barrels from the water or the dock, and that'll make more sense here in a minute. he can give all the barrels he has to Quint. So if he's picking up barrels and putting them on his boat, you can pick up as many barrels as you want. He can do that and hand them off to Quint. And then use Fish Finder. So let me kind of describe how rescuing swimmers works, and let me describe how the Fish Finder works. So, the Fish Finder. So say that Hooper moved to North Beach, okay, and they think, I think the shark is in this kind of general area. What Hooper can do is he can play Fish Finder in the space that he's in, and he basically says, all right, I'm playing Fish Finder here as Jaws in North Beach, and the shark player would say, no, I'm not in North Beach. But what happens is the Fish Finder not only looks in the location that the Hooper is in, but also the adjacent spaces. And how adjacency works in the board game is these white lines. So as long as it's adjacent, it's considered an adjacent space. Now if it's a diagonal, that does not count. So for instance, in this example, you'd be able to search for the shark in North Beach as if he's located there, or adjacent spaces. So adjacent spaces would be counted as 1, 5, and 6, as long as they're adjacent and they're connected by water. So 2 would not be a place they would be able to see. But as we recall, the shark is at position 6. So him using his Fish Finder here, the shark would have to say, I am nearby. So that lets the players know that the shark is either in position 1, 5, or 6. So that kind of helps them hone in on his location. He doesn't have to tell which one, just that he's nearby. And then if he were in, say, 2 or way across the board and not in an adjacent space, he'd just say, I'm not there. So that's how the Fish Finder works. How rescue swimmers works basically is as long as you're in a space that contains swimmers, you just pick them up and you save them and you place them off the board. So if Hooper wanted to rescue a swimmer here, he'd just pick it up for one action. Likewise, if Hooper is at the beach, he would just pick up one swimmer and place it off the board to save a swimmer. The last player is Quint. Quint has up to 4 actions. He can move, he can rescue a swimmer, he can pick up all the barrels, and he can launch a barrel. So the first phase of the game is all about the barrels. So let's kind of reset things a little bit. So Quint starts over here, and basically what Quint is going to be doing throughout the game is he's going to be rescuing swimmers or placing barrels and moving, of course. So how this works is basically say that Quint moves here to East Beach and launches a barrel, which is an action. What the launching the barrel does is basically he's harpooning the barrel into the water, trying to attach it to the shark. So if it hits, for instance, if the shark was in East Beach, basically that barrel would be attached, and it would count as one of the 2 conditions for the crew to win Act 1 against the shark, and so doing so would end Act 1 and then go into Act 2. But if the shark is not there, what this does is the shark just says, nope, you didn't get me. And what this now becomes is a motion sensor. And so what happens then, if the shark player were to move through this section at some time during their turn, at the end of the turn, likewise, they have to describe, yes, I ate a swimmer at East Beach. They would have to say that at some point during my turn, I did move through East Beach. Now, like I said before, there is a power token that allows them to basically be invisible to that, this evasive moves. But if that wasn't played, then the shark would have to reveal that he did move through that section. Now, say that Quint did move to this section. Maybe the crew did kind of hone in. Maybe they think Jaws is section 6. Quint would launch the barrel, and the shark would say, yes, you got me. So the token would go on there, and the shark would be revealed for that turn. We know that he's here. Likewise, if Brody were to use his binoculars on a beach and the shark was there, the shark would place his meeple there. And then also, likewise for the Fish Finder, if the Fish Finder found Jaws in that spot, the little shark meeple would go there to reveal that he's at that location. Now, The Act 1 ends when basically either the shark eats 9 swimmers throughout the game, or the crew attaches 2 barrels to the shark. Now this is important and feeds into Act 2 because basically how well the shark does depends on how many special abilities he gets in Act 2. And then it also depends if the crew gets the shark really early in the game before he starts eating a lot of swimmers, the crew also gets extra gear going into Act 2. If they don't, they only get 3 gear, which isn't very much. In the game I played, the shark ate all 9 swimmers, and the shark had 10 ability cards, and we only got 3 crew cards. So it seemed a little daunting to defeat Jaws or the shark in this second act. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and flip the board over and get it all set for Act 2, and then to go through how Act 2 works. Alright, now I have the board all set up for Act 2, which takes place on the Orca. Basically what you do is you flip the board over, and in the box you have these 8 Orca tiles. You'll place them on this side with the white and black numbers corresponding to the undamaged side of the boat, and then you'll just kind of assemble the boat. You'll shuffle and place this resurface deck here. You can place these stage these markers, and I'll show you how that works. You'll have damage dice that you'll set aside. Each of the player cards will be flipped over, and the health marker will be placed at 0 for the crew. Each of the crew will start out with 2 gear. So Brody will start out with a pistol and a baseball bat. Hooper starts out with a hammer and a rifle. And Quint starts out with a machete and a flare. The shark, based on how the Act 1 played out, the shark will get X amount of shark ability cards, and the crew will get X amount of crew gear cards. So, for instance, say in the first round, the shark ate 9 swimmers before the round ended, which is a condition for the ending of Act 1. Either the shark eats 9 swimmers or 2 barrels gets attached. The shark player would get 10 shark ability cards. So these are this deck here, shark ability cards, and each of these have different powers. Basically, they kind of work as amity events, similar as in Act 1. Basically, during the round, this will take effect during the turn. For instance, after rolling for an attack, the shark may re-roll as many dice as they wish. The new results are final. So you shuffle this deck, and you distribute it however many cards to the shark player, depending on how Act 1 went. That would go to the shark player. The shark player also gets these vote tokens for A, B, and C, and I'll show you how those work in a minute. You'll flip this over. You also give the crew their amount of cards. So from Act 1, the crew would get 3 cards. And let's show you how the crew cards look. So the crew cards are just like basic additional actions or additional gear. So each of these will have some of these have different symbols on them. Let's see if there's one. So this is this little crosshair symbols for long-range weapons. Basically, when you attack the shark, when it surfaces, you can target any spot, just long range. If you use it, though, you have to discard it unless you have an ammo. So, for instance, there are some of these ammo cards, and they allow you to discard the ammo instead of having to discard the weapon. But if you don't have an ammo card, as soon as you use it, basically it's done. They also have these damage dice, so you would roll 2 damage dice when you attack with the pistol. Other weapons are attachable weapons. So attachable weapons, basically, as long as you're in an adjacent space when the shark shows up, it just gets attached to the shark. And how this works is basically at the end of the round, it would have this action. So while attached, when the shark rolls for an attack, all die that show a 2 hits are only counted as 1. So basically, it helps the crew a bit for this one. And they're all helpful. And basically how this works is basically it stays in effect until the shark is able to remove this attachable weapon. And I'll show you how that works here in a moment. And then the final type is this melee card. So this is a melee weapon. You have to use it when you're in the same space or adjacent space as where the shark appears. Likewise, the card anatomy is the same. You roll 3 dice for this, and then some of these have special actions where you can do additional things based on how the rolls come out. So the crew would get however many they would get for that. If the shark ate 9 swimmers, for instance, the crew would get 3 of these. And how these work is basically they would get distributed however the crew sees fit. If someone has a long-range weapon, it would make sense to maybe give them the ammo. The fishing net and trank spear, I mean, you can split these up, or one player could have both of them. It just depends. So the goal in Act 2 is basically you'd flip the shark player token over 2, and you would place their health at 0. You see it goes up to 17. And how Act 2 finishes is basically either the winning conditions for the shark is the shark eats all the crew, or eats all the destroys the boat. And so they would destroy these boat tiles, and I'll show you how that works here in a minute. And the crew wins if they are able to kill the shark by inflicting all the health from the shark. So how does it start? So the round starts when you flip over these resurface tokens, or these cards. So each of these cards show a corresponding region where the shark can resurface. Now in Act 1, basically the shark can move wherever they wanted to. In Act 2, basically the shark is limited to surfacing in these sectors. So they will have 3 options in which they can surface. So what you would do is you place these little red tokens on the corresponding spot to the cards. Each of these has a position, A, B, C. So this one would go here, B would go here, and C would go here. And then the shark player would look at these cards and kind of see, like, well, where do I want to resurface? So they would look at their little tokens, they'd pick one, they would play it secretly. In addition to that, they could pick a special ability card if they wanted to. Let's just pretend they pick this one. They play that secretly as well. And then what happens is the crew decides, they start preparing for the shark's attack. So they look at where the shark can resurface, and they move accordingly. So the people can move up to 2 spots. So for instance, I'm going to keep all of them, but I'm going to move Brody up to C, because maybe Brody thinks, oh, I think the shark is going to approach at C. Then what happens is each of the players has a little targeting token. They will place the targeting token on the corresponding sections of the board, corresponding to their color. And then they also pick which weapon they're going to use. So for instance, maybe Brody's going to use his baseball bat if he can attack. Hooper's going to use his hammer. And let's just have Quint use his machete. Just go on full on melee this round. What then happens is once the crew has prepared, the shark reveals where it is going to appear. And in this case, it's going to appear in A. And then, if they played a special ability for the shark, if the shark damages or destroys a boat space, each member on the boat, on that boat space, takes 1 wound. So on A, which is here, we discard these other ones, and then this one's the only one that takes effect. So what happens now is that Quint is able to attack the shark. Now he chose during his preparation phase to use the machete, and so this shows he can roll 2 die and then add 1 damage. So he's going to go ahead and roll 2 die, and he rolled only 1. So there are some blank spaces on these dice. So he rolled 1, but he gets add 2 additional damage. So 2. Now the cards will have this symbol on them. That means it's an evade symbol. So what this means is basically a shark takes minus this. So you take your damage and then you subtract whatever this number is. So in this case, Quint did 1 damage plus 1 from his machete, so 2. and then -1, 1 damage. So the shark then receives 1 damage, so the shark player will take their damage tracker and move it down to the 1 spot. Once the crew attacks, if they can, Brody was unable to attack because he is at this position, and Hooper was unable to attack because he is at that position. Now the shark will attack. And how the shark attack works is basically the shark will attack with 3 dice this time. So the shark will roll its damage. Oops. It did roll 2, a blank and 2 ones. So it attacks the boat, or this tile, for 2. Now each of these tiles has 2 numbers on it. It has a white number and a black number. The white number indicates the number of damage that this tile can take. So if it was damaged, in this case 2 damage, the tile would flip over and show the damaged side of the boat, like so. Now that spot is damaged. Now similarly to how adjacency works in the Act 1, now you would see that the white line is a little bit off of the main boat. So now for Hooper, for instance, this tile is now adjacent for him to attack if he wanted to, with a melee weapon or with an attachable weapon. Of course he could do long range if the shark was the surface at any range. So that's kind of an interesting thing about the adjacency and how that works. But for instance, what if the shark rolled 4 damage? So let's just pretend the shark rolled 4 damage. So the shark rolls 4 damage. This boat tile would immediately be destroyed because it's a value of 4. So when a tile is destroyed, basically it gets discarded and gets put back in the box. And if there was any crew member on that space when it got destroyed, they'd be now in the water. Now that the player's in the water, the shark could do a bonus attack. And any people that are in adjacent spaces to where he's at or within the spot he's at. So since now Quint is in the water with the shark, which I'm sure he doesn't want to be, the shark is able to roll 1 die of damage, and he hits Quint with 2. So Quint would move his marker down to 2 because he takes 2 damage. And then that's the end. Then any effects on the shark ability would happen. So if the shark damages or destroys a boat space, each crew member on that boat space takes 1 wound. So since the shark did damage that boat space or destroy that boat space that Quint was on, he takes 1 more damage. So he has 3 damage this time. And that is how the game plays out for Act 2. Basically what you would do is you discard all the resurface tokens, reassign all these, put everything back. The shark would get its token back. This special ability is now discarded because they used it. And now you'd redraw 3 new resurface cards. And then the round begins again. One additional thing is I want to talk about are the movements. So I did say that you can move up to 2, but if you're in the water, it does take your full 2 movements to get back on the boat. So he would only be able to go to 2 spaces, 1, 1, 2. So he'd only be able to get out of the water, back on the boat. And one other thing I failed to mention is the attachable weapons. So pretend that Quint, instead of using his machete that last round, he used this attachable weapon. Well, it immediately gets attached to the shark. And how that works is that it would immediately get attached, and then when attached, at the end of the round, the shark must roll 1 die and take that many damage. The various attachable weapons do various things, but that's what this flare would do. So say Quint did that and played that card. So basically this is now attached to the shark, and the shark player would kind of take that to their player area, and they would have to do whatever the action is. Usually it's take more damage. So the shark would take 2 damage that round if this was attached. Now how does the shark remove that? There are resurface cards in here that show this little shaking hook symbol thing. And basically what that means is that if the shark player picked to resurface in an area that had a card with this hook symbol, basically they would be able to remove that that attachable weapon, so that would no longer have effect to them. But only if they choose that surface area to appear. And that is Act 2. That's how it plays out. Either the shark takes all the damage and the crew wins, or the shark eats all the players, or all the tiles get destroyed. And that's Jaws the board game. Feel free to comment if you have any questions or you have any rule clarifications I might have messed up. But hopefully you find this video interesting, and hopefully it kind of fills any questions you have about how the game's played or how it flows. The rule book allows you to play Act 2 separately. There's some rule modifications, so you could play Act 1 only if you wanted to, or you could play Act 2 if you wanted to. So it's almost two board games in one. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, in our game, the shark ate all 9 swimmers and had 10 shark abilities and 3 crew cards. We got 3 crew cards. Excuse me, I played Brody. It was looking pretty hairy there for a while. Our boat was almost completely destroyed. I think we had 3 tiles that were like fully intact. The shark was down. We were all about half life. And the shark, we edged out the shark by just a couple of hit points. So it didn't seem like it was going to be possible at all, but we managed to defeat the shark. So it did seem a little bit more evenly of a battle than I expected it to be. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and have a good one. Thank you.